Well, this is going to be an experience. I normally don't watch action movies, mostly because they're not good, though I occasionally make exceptions. I made an exception for this movie for its gimmick. First person. Yes, today's review, Hardcore Henry. Let's begin, shall we? The movie starts with a kid throwing a toy at the wall. The first dialogue in this movie is a man calling Henry, as a kid I mind you, a pussy. Already, this movie is going to be interesting. Then there's an intro sequence that shows a whole bunch of dudes getting mangled many ways in slow motion, with everything appearing red and black. The camera, which is presumably Henry, wakes up in a water tank, missing an arm and a leg. A sexy scientist lady drains the tub, and she starts talking to the camera, while adding prosthetic limbs for the missing arm and leg. A lot of what I just said does not make any sense in any other context than Hardcore Henry. It is important to note that there will be a lot of sequences where you just have to pause the movie and say, what the hell just happened? Henry doesn't have a voice, so the sexy scientist brings him to a room with two other not-so-sexy scientists, who play around with the module that gives Henry his voice until Dante the Demon Killer miraculously learned the Force, and he uses it to break down a door and kill someone. He then caresses Miss Sexy-tist and kills the other not-so-sexy-tist. The scientist plays loud music to distract Darth Riku while she and Henry runs away, only to reveal to Henry and the audience that the laboratory was in the sky! Miss Science Lady and Henry escape from the Skylab via escape pod, and they crash land in the crash site is immediately surrounded by the Russian mafia, and Henry tries to fight them, only for his ass to be served on a silver platter. He falls 20 feet off the freeway straight onto pavement and lives. He then tries hiding from the Russian mafia, only to meet
It's alright, you can put your hands down now.
3 years I've been waiting for this moment. I'll get Charlie fucking Chaplin. Fuck's sake, come on!
He's important, remember him. Jimmy gives Henry and the audience some exposition, as well as Henry starts running away and hides in a small store where he changes and starts running some more, fighting police along the way. Henry winds up on a public bus where he meets a bum who's actually
Jimmy.
Jimmy gives more exposition, slits Henry's wrist, and then gives Henry some instructions.
It's Slick's place. All you gotta do is break in there, kill him, open up his ribcage, take out his beating heart, and fucking eat it. I'm kidding, you don't have to fucking eat his heart.
Jimmy then finds a depressed man on the side of the road, makes fun of him, and oh god no! Henry escapes the fire, because of course he does, and steals clothes from skinny dippers at the public park. He's immediately met with two angry Russians who he knocks out. He starts climbing a building, because of course he does, where he enters a stoner's room. Afterwards, he starts walking to the elevator, making sure nobody's there. Henry grabs a man by the nose and enters a server room? Once inside the room, he finds another room with a man sitting in a chair. The man's already dead. Nope. Cool action scene later, the man escapes as Henry starts chasing him down the streets of Russia. One sick parkour. Session later, Henry catches the man and proceeds to What's next? No! Henry runs away after that, and he gets called by Jimmy tells Henry to meet him at a strip club, because of course he does. Once Henry reaches Jimmy, he starts dying. Jimmy bails, and then Jimmy comes back and saves Henry from the brink of robo-death. Then Jimmy gets a phone call, where he's informed that the Mafia is now in the strip club.
They're here.
Jimmy then bails, and Jimmy comes back naked and coked up. Wait, what? They then proceed to shoot up a nightclub. Oh. Somehow, Edgelord is in the nightclub, and he kills Jimmy. Henry then escapes the nightclub, meets Jimmy, and they both smoke weed. What? Henry and Jimmy steal a bike, with a Gatling gun attached to it, because of course that exists, as they hit the road Mad Maxing the Russian Mafia. Henry jumps into a surveillance van where he runs into Sexy Tits again. I've run out of jokes for this man, so I'll just call him Dante. Enters the scene, bashing Henry's skull in with a bat. Jimmy and a Resident Evil reject saves Henry, fixing him after Dante bashed his head in. Henry then hijacks a tank, but doesn't use it. He then kills a bunch of people, because of course he does. Jimmy calls Henry again, gives him a horse, and... we'll be right back. Henry goes into an abandoned building where he busts a man's balls. I'm not even questioning this shit anymore. Exposition. Turns out Jimmy is multiple people, but one person and a cripple. Yeah. One music sequence later, Jimmy gets pissy and pisses off Henry. Henry kills Jimmy at least 3 times, and then...
I still have to...
It's Dante and the Russian Mafia. And they have guns. Big guns. One badass action scene with a couple good laughs later, Henry, Jimmy, and Jimmy take a truck to the streets.
Aiken is a cunt!
They reach Dante's Inferno and walk right inside. Yep. Just walk right inside. You again!
What's red and bad for your teeth?
On your feet, lad.
Oh. Jimmy and Jimmy dies, giving Henry one last gift. His memory. I don't get it either. Henry gets angry again, wipes out a small army, and realizes he's been duped by the Dante.
Memories. My first batch of cyber soldiers.
Yes, this entire time, Dante has been making robots. Who would have thunk it? Okay, this has gone overboard. Henry reaches the roof along with his 150 clones, and he starts beating the shit out of each and every one of them while doing some sick parkour. After Henry shoots some adrenaline, Queen's Having a Good Time starts playing as he starts mowing through all of the clones. Finally, it's the last dance. Henry versus Dante the Sith Lord. Yep. It is revealed that the science lady was in cahoots with Dante the entire time. Who would have thunk it? Henry gets pissed to the point of straight up dismissing the Force and... The movie wraps up with scientists falling out of a helicopter. Lovely. This movie is great as an experimental type movie. How would a movie go if it was entirely in first person? Well, this is the answer to that question. It's alright. There's a couple thousand questions I have for this movie that will probably never be answered, but I'm not too hurt about that. Really, I'm not. The action is solid, the casting is pretty good, and it's got that perfect level of absurdity that makes this movie that much better. Man, this movie broke me, but it broke me the way my dad, well, Hardcore Henry was alright. Until next time.